You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Inside the Black and Gold. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
And Michael House, and let's get right into this week's interview.
This week, we are joined by founder of Inside the Black and Gold and our editor, Ahmed Ghafir. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you guys having me on, and it's great to be with you guys.
I want to take a couple steps back before we start talking Maryland basketball, Maryland football, Maryland baseball, all the above, everything we're going to cover in the show. A bit of your kind of backstory, how you got into sports journalism and how you started, and what the process was like for why you started Inside the Black and Gold.
Yeah, I started doing, covering Maryland and whatnot, actually my senior year of college. I'm dating myself, so that was 2014. And then I started working full time and kind of debated if I wanted to do it, continue doing Maryland. I had an opportunity, initially said no, and then about a month later was like, yeah, I want to do it. And it was just always enjoyable. I used to work at Morgan Stanley, and Morgan Stanley has its perks, but I definitely felt like there were times where I just didn't wake up and I didn't love work. It felt like a chore. And I've never felt like that with sports. I've never woken up and I've never felt stressed, which is something that I'm really grateful about. But yeah, I would say Inside the Black and Gold. I left the network, and then I went to Sports Illustrated for a bit. And it was 6 months, and it was nice, and had COVID, and there were a lot of changes, and decided I kind of liked it. I wanted to keep going, so started out on a Substack and just kind of kept building up from there. And we started an internship. We've had 11 students, excuse me. We'll have 13 in the fall, but 11 who have earned a college credit through Inside the Black and Gold. So love it. Obviously, people know me for football, but we've done basketball, we cover baseball, we cover lacrosse. So we do a really good job. We feel like we've really been able to create a lot of opportunities for people. And like I said, I don't think I've ever woken up and dreaded doing this. So I think that's something that keeps me going, and something that I kind of put a premium on in life, and just making sure that you wake up, and if you're all in on something, it makes it easier to work pretty much around the clock. And I feel like I found exactly that.
Is it about the university, the area, whatever it may be? Like, why do you think it drew you back, right? Because you could have pursued a sports journalism career covering a different team, doing something else. Like, what about the school, and again, like Maryland, made you want to stay?
Yeah, actually, and shout out Ryan and Fred. I used to do Shell and Tell with them years ago, and when I was on my Substack, I kind of questioned, I finished, my master's, and decided, that if I was going to go a different route, and they were kind of like, what if everything clicks? And people know me for football and recruiting, and for recruiting for Maryland, it's always going to be about recruiting your backyard, winning your backyard. And I think, especially for me, for football, for Mike Locksley, I've kind of always felt like if Mike Locksley can't do it, it's not going to be done at Maryland. I think there's just too much, there's too much politics, there's too much BS in this area to that you have to kind of consistently win over. And I felt like just kind of being able to see how that materialized, how that blossomed. I think that was something that I really wanted. But in terms of, Maryland, what drew me to the school, I mean, Gravis Vasquez senior year, I mean, that like that season, just watching that and seeing, I mean, my sophomore year at Maryland, I lived across the hall from a guy grew up in LA, and he said he watched the Gravis Vasquez game, seeing the fans and everything, and he was like, that was kind of what drew me to Maryland. So, I think just kind of being able to grow up around that, we had season tickets for season after the Orange Bowl and beyond. So I just kind of always grew up around Maryland. So I think, like I said, just covering the recruiting side of it, and winning your backyard. Well, now you have a guy like Malik Washington, who was a 3-time MIAA champion. You have Zion Ely, who's a guy from Baltimore, who's the highest ranked player in program history. So like there are a lot of pieces. Sidney Stewart, Zahir Mathis, being able to keep these guys, like there are a lot of pieces, and just kind of being able to kind of see how that all unfolds is kind of been kind of nice. And big picture, just seeing how the program grows. I think that those are things that kind of keep me plugged in and beyond the initial fandom.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking about Grievous Vasquez makes me think about how we need to get the Xfinity Center back packed and loud next year, even how it was last year in Kevin Willard's last season, that Sweet 16 run. Let's talk about these portal additions that the Terps have made so far. The big one from the past week is Mike McNair from Boston U. Led the Patriot League in made threes last season, averaged 16.9 points per game. I told you before we started recording, when they added Bishop Boswell, at first I was like, all right, is this the three-point shooter that they're trying to go out and get right now? Now that they got McNair, I'm feeling a lot more confident in this team's three-point shooting, the weapons that they have. Ahmed, how are you feeling about this squad heading into next season?
Yeah, I really like the backcourt. And like you touched on Boswell, when he came in, obviously his title was gonna be a point guard. And, I think there was some encouragement from what you've seen out of him at point guard. But I think initially my question was if your primary point guard is a guy that primarily played off the ball and, filled in that point guard role late in the season. I mean, Maryland fans are familiar with Jacoby Gillespie, so we know the type of player he is, how he plays and how he can thrive. So we can kind of understand the role of Gillespie moving off the ball a little bit to help Tennessee's offense a little bit. But I think when you look at how it played out, Boswell, DJ Wagner, Mike McNair, and then you bring back Andre Mills. I think there's a lot of versatility. You can have multiple guard. You could have three guard lineups. I think that's kind of what I really like. And like you said, Mike McNair, I think that's kind of that instant scoring that this backcourt kind of needed. Andre Mills is a guy, yeah, he's capable of a three-point scorer, but he's more, your downhill scorer. I think Boswell, DJ Wagner, again, they have shown that they are capable of making the three. And I think kind of all these guys complement each other really well. And I think that the backcourt kind of alleviates what, Baba has to do as a freshman, five-star reclass, sat out pretty much all of his senior year except for the playoff run and
Yeah.
a couple of all-star games. So I think, kind of getting him comfortable. And then you look at Bolgen and having Payne back, of course, pending that medical. I think there is a lot to like, and I think it's easy argument to say that the top 7, 8 on this roster is vastly upgraded from year one under the Buzz era.
So, Med, I hear you. You know, I think in a vacuum, these are fine additions. I got a problem though. Adding an entire roster with not a single player who averaged more than 4 assists is a problem to me. There is not someone who I really feel like on this Maryland team at the guard position can generate their own shot. Boswell, we can sit here and say he showed some flashes. The NCAA tournament, he barely played point guard, and that's
Yeah.
because they didn't trust him to handle it. It felt like Gillespie and Nate Ament were the only guys who they really put the ball in his hand. McNair's a great player. I like that pickup, probably my favorite one, but he needs someone to get him the ball. DJ Wagner is living off the pedigree of being a number one recruit years ago. He hasn't been like an uber efficient player in his entire college tenure, and he's played for one coach. Like, what does that kind of say? I think that all these ads are fine, but unless Baba is a complete offensive playmaker and creator that you need, I think this team is basically reliant on the Buzz Williams strategies of we're gonna miss shots and we're gonna offensive rebound and we're gonna play really hard defense, and like that's fine, but the ceiling for that team is severely limited in my opinion. There isn't someone. The best Buzz teams have had a really talented shot maker and scorer, and maybe we think Baba's that, and I'm wrong, right? But if we're saying that he's not needed to step into this heliocentric number one role, I don't love the roster then, because like I said, every Buzz team has had an elite shot maker, elite playmaker. Wade Taylor at Texas A&M, his good Marquette teams dating back had some good players. So I guess that's just my concern when looking at this guard rotation and this roster as a whole.
I think that's actually fair. And I think the one thing that kind of towards the end, maybe last week, something that was kind of on the radar was if Maryland was going to be able to add kind of like that true point guard, like a Tylen Riley. I think he announced his commitment on Tuesday. But a guy like that where he can kind of
Kid from
be
Colby I
that
liked too.
exactly. He's like a more of a true point guard, kind of facilitator. And I think that was kind of something that was kind of on the table. So I definitely think that's fair. I just think the front court. I think front court depth. I think is a question mark. Uh, but I think Bolden and Payne. I think. I mean, I think you could build that they could be your offense. I think that front court, you just get the ball to them. You will find success
Right.
more often than not. So I do agree with some of the criticism there.
Yeah. So I guess is that the sense that you get for what this offense is going to look like? Is like we're going to basically have two dominant post players. This is the hope. Two dominant post players. We got a really talented wing forward, whatever position you think Bob's going to play, and then we're just going to put them around a bunch of shooters. Is that what you kind of envision the offense being like?
Yeah, and I think Andre Mills is a guy that he can kind of create some of that scoring
Yeah,
off the pick and
that's
roll
true.
with a guy like Bolden and Payne. And I think Baba, I think he's a three. Mike McNair, I think he kind of be that two guy. But yeah, like you said, I think the front court. I'm not down on Payne at all. I just think Bolden might be better. And maybe I'm crazy. When I really like him, or when I watch his tape, I really like him. I think the rebounding and that defensive prowess, I think those are things that are going to translate to Maryland. I like his signing as much as Payne coming back, to be honest.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty early right now. They haven't even played a game or practiced together. But what would you guys say is the ceiling for this team? We're talking in April right now. What is the ceiling for this team?
God, I love Maryland athletics so much. That's just the greatest discussion of all time. Ceiling, realistically, I think with this roster is probably the Sweet 16. I would be shocked if they make it past then, but also with this roster, I'd be very surprised if they don't make the tournament.
Yeah.
I think this team makes the tournament, but do they win a game in the tournament? Do they win two? I wouldn't put my money on that. This roster, though, I think is poised to make it, but I think it's poised so heavily on being a good team defensively, mostly because of what Sam laid out, which is I don't think this team is gonna, sure they added some good shooters, but the ability for one player to dominate and to take over and create his own shot, I think is going to hinder them at least to start the season. Maybe Michael McNair becomes that guy. If Andre Mills takes a huge step, he could be that guy. But this team, once it's set up to play really, really hard defense, and that is a formula that has worked for Buzz before. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think that's actually fair. Of course, tournament it's so matchup dependent. So, but I feel like it is, and obviously, defensively, I think that's kind of what's going to help, and I think that's going to be what translates day one. I think Boswell, he's a really good defender. Baba, his length. Adama, Tambedo, we hadn't really talked about him, but I think he's a guy 6'7", more of a maybe an undersized power forward, but I think he's a guy where again, his translating and that physicality kind of translates. So I do think that's kind of that Buzz identity will definitely kind of show up early on. But yeah, I think first weekend you have a chance to make it out. You have a chance to sneak a game. I'll also say if they don't make the tournament, we're probably having bigger discussions next year, and I don't think that's much of a
So,
stretch,
man,
to be honest.
Before we get back to the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor. The Catalyst to the Game is brought to you by Catalyst Hot Dogs. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium dry-aged Black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings including hot onions, relish, and their signature Texas chili sauce. And don't miss their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns. Shout out gluten-free buns, because Catalyst has food for everyone. Find them in CQ Stadium in Section 14 and the Xfinity Center in Section 210. Tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, now here is more Under the Shell.
You teed me up perfectly, because let me tell you something. This team, there's a better chance they don't make the tournament and Buzz Williams is fired than it is that they make the Elite Eight, because I do not see any legitimate path unless the tournament completely breaks their way and Baba's like a top 5 pick, which, listen, I think he's a really good prospect. I like the stuff that he's added, but he barely played last year. Like we don't necessarily know, so you can't assume a freshman's going to be Derek Queen, right? Like that was a once in a season type of year from him. And I think that the pieces in general, they scream to me 8 seed, maybe win a game, get absolutely demolished by a 1 seed in the second round. And if you had to put the two outcomes on the table, that they win 3 straight tournament games, or the bottom falls out and they don't make the tournament, I'm taking the latter for sure. Michael thinks I'm crazy. I bet you that's we're gonna look back on this a year from now and you're gonna be like, Sam, you're a genius.
I think that it's way more likely the cards fall in their favor to make an Elite Eight than missing the tournament as a whole. I mean, this roster is so much more talented than last year's. And yes, I get it, the concerns about Pablo. He is.
I push back on that so much, though. Last year, this time, we were saying very different things.
Michael, you were hyping up Miles Rice.
Miles Rice?
I was, and we were wrong. He's in the portal again. But, I mean, look, you mentioned it. The big question mark is Baba. The way he missed basically the entire season until the Maryland high school semifinals, that is weird. Was he actually injured this whole time? Or was he just preserving his body and waiting to see, hey, do they have a shot of winning the state title? Then he'll play. Like, that whole situation is very weird. We'll probably not get too much insight on what happened. But still, like, the pieces around Baba outside of him, I think it's a lot better. Think of it like the pieces around Payne. If we look at last year's roster versus this year's, it's so much better. So I think this team can only go up.
Yeah. Actually, go ahead, Brendan.
I still think that Pharrell Payne is going to be the best player on this team. I know you said differently, but if he plays the way he did at the start of this past season and he's averaging 16 points a game, I think he was averaging 17.5, obviously played a lot of non-conference games there, but if he's averaging 16 or 17 points a game, that is going to be the cornerstone of this team. If he makes even a little bit of a jump from last year, obviously he was injured, so who really knows his condition, but if he is what he is at the start of the year and he has these pieces around him.
Talking about 17 points a game.
Is that not what he was averaging?
And a jump in his across a whole season, and a jump in his senior year coming off a leg-shattering injury. Like
he did not shatter his leg.
I mean, it looked like it. That was a little hyperbole, but I'm just saying.
Sam, figure it out, dude. If he's as good as he was this past season, then this team could be very good.
I mean, Brendan, he was playing he played one legitimate opponent. They didn't play a single tournament team, I don't think, with him on the roster. Did they? Marquette was abysmal. Georgetown might have been even worse.
That Georgetown game was the biggest troll of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, anyway, carry on. All you.
I just don't think that 17 points a game and an improvement from a guy in his, 6th year of college basketball or 5th year of college basketball is a legitimate expectation. We should.
All right. So
he played against Gonzaga and Alabama.
Yeah, that's true. What did he do in those games? He had 14.
Yeah, 14 and 14, yeah.
Yeah, on 5 of 13 and 5 of 10 shooting. So not exactly 17 and, all Big Ten level. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I do think that Baba, like how I guess comfortable he gets, how he's able to develop and what he's able to provide offensively, I think that could kind of be the X factor into what Maryland's ceiling could be. And again, I think Wagner and Boswell, Mike McNair, like I think those guys, like Andre Mills, like I think you do kind of know what you can expect out of them. But I think Baba being able to kind of add some versatility on the wing, being able to add to the floor spacing a little bit, and again, that his length I think is going to translate defensively. But I think whether or not he's going to be able to stretch the floor, whether he's able to kind of show a 3-point shot, I think that could kind of determine maybe what this year 2 picture really does look like. But again, I think you guys kind of hit on some of those points on backcourt and maybe the chemistry question.
Yeah, I might have a better what's more likely question, and we can segment into football off of this. What's more likely? The football team and men's basketball are in the postseason. So football plays a bowl game, men's basketball reaches the NCAA tournament, or neither of them play in the postseason.
Man,
that's a better question, I think.
Just football makes any bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they play
I'm going they both miss. I think they both miss it is more likely for sure.
I don't know. I kind of do feel like a homer now, but I would say maybe lean a little bit more likely that they do make it. But only reason I would say I would be slightly optimistic. I do think the Big Ten football schedule is a little bit tougher. Obviously, the non-conference slate is not easier. You have UConn on the road. You have Virginia Tech that week 3, and I think that Virginia Tech game is going to be amazing, amazing, amazing. Um, but you're still kind of banking on, a lot of these guys, Malik Washington, Dorian Fleming, wide receiver room, cornerback room, like a lot of these guys kind of being able to take that next step. So I think they have a chance, and I do think that the men's basketball does make the postseason. Um, but I wouldn't put money on it.
That's a great question, Mike. I'll go with they both make the postseason. I think the basketball team is going to. It's really a question of football. Uh, I really, I mean, honestly, I don't think either of the. I think what's realistic is basketball make the postseason and football will not. But that obviously wasn't the question.
Ahmed, that's a good transition into talking a little bit about the football team. This is obviously your recruiting based site. This freshman class, top heavy, you would say. Obviously, Zion Ely, the big gem, I guess you could call it. In terms of the role you think he's going to play, there's a lot of proven pass rushers coming back. Zahir Mathis, Sidney Stewart. What have you gauged from what he wants to do and then what Maryland is kind of looking for him to do here in this first year? And how much of an impact do you think he can play in whatever role he has?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he'll be an impact, but I do still kind of view like Sydney and Zahir as kind of like that 1A, 1B right now. And I think Zion right now, I think really spring ball, we talked about it on the site, but just him kind of getting comfortable and kind of being able to add to his repertoire a little bit. I think in high school, I mean, he was just athletically, obviously his build is different, but athletically, I mean, he was just kind of a different type of athlete in the trenches. But you get to college and you see a lot more athletes like that. So I think kind of being able to, to add a little bit more of that, like the hand placement and the refined technique. I think that's kind of the big thing for him. Where I think he can kind of still be able to, be that third down guy, be able to lean on that speed, and be able to get, Zion, Zaire, Sid all on the field together. But I think, right now it's kind of, just kind of getting bigger. I know Sydney Stewart, Zahir Mathis, both those guys are doing a really good job of kind of really stepping into that teacher role. Just kind of taking him under their wing, adding extra reps after practice, and just I know Dan Yarbrough, they get a lot of extra work in during the offseason. Dan works with a lot of pass rushers, defensive linemen up in the Baltimore area. So that they all excuse me, they all are pretty inseparable, get a lot of that extra work together. But again, kind of see Zahir and Sid as kind of that 1A, 1B, and Zion being that change of pace guy.
Yeah, I mean, we can have all the edge rushers we want, but I think it's going to come down to the offense of Malik and how does he look his sophomore year. And Ahmed, I'm a little confused on the division of power within this offense right now. You got Mike Loxley, you got Clint Trickett, and then you got Pep Hamilton still in the building. As far as I know, he's still making over $1 million, even though it was a soft firing by Loxley. What is going on the offense? Who is calling the plays? Like what is the division of power here? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I mean, it's Trickett. It's his kind of imprint on the offense, and it's a lot more RPO based, and think you'll get a chance to see not Malik Washington running every play, but I think you'll see him have that a little bit more flexibility, that freedom of getting out of the pocket, a little bit more maybe design runs. And again, last year you look back at fall camp and he battled injuries going into it and was kind of limited in fall camp, and so that non-conference slate was about getting him comfortable, getting him those game reps, and kind of being able to build on it while not putting too much out there on film for Big Ten teams. So I think kind of being able to lean on that and kind of adding some tempo and trick it. But again, this is tier 8 under Mike Loxley. This is Mike Loxley's offense, and the offensive coordinators just kind of put their wrinkle on it. So at the end of the day, the ultimate power is Mike Loxley on offense, but Trickett will call the plays.
Yeah, I thought that move to switch OCs just kind of reeked of desperation from Loxley. He knows the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Like he had to make some sort of switch. That's why his buddy had a soft firing. Like no other way to put it.
Firing shit. I'd take any money for any job for over $1 million. clean the
You
toilets
would
in there if you want me
I would
to.
probably go back to Goldman and Sachs for a million. Uh, I want to ask you about Michael Locksley, man, because you've covered him for a long time. You said something that I thought was really interesting earlier in the podcast. You said, if Michael Locksley can't do it, nobody can. For Maryland fans, that's got to be a pretty sobering thought. Do you mean, when you say that, I know you were more talking about recruiting, but just in general, how much is this era and the disappointment that's followed it for the past couple seasons really impacted, you think, fans' view of the program? And do you think change could come and make it a better and more viable football team?
Yeah, and again, I think I felt a lot stronger about that when he first got here, because now, you do shift from, if you're able to get resource again, everyone points at Indiana. You get a good coach and you get the resources, and then you can kind of just start to become that well-oiled machine. It's easier said than done at Maryland, I think, but in terms of locks, yeah, I mean, I think just kind of being able to kind of have the resources in place and kind of being able to kind of have some alignment. I think that that's kind of been lacking through his tenure. But yeah, at the end of the day, these players, it's not as much relationship driven. It's resource, and it's making sure that they have all the perks and the accolades and things like that. So yeah, there is some of the I guess the shine of what differentiates Mike Locksley at the beginning of his tenure. A lot of that stuff maybe isn't as important now. Of course, it still is important, but yeah, I just I'll say this, in this area, again, you're recruiting, Maryland recruits Florida, you recruit a little bit of the Midwest, starting to see a little bit more in Texas. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be in your backyard. And I think a couple years ago was really the moment, and I won't go into why, but like there was just really a moment where it just like sunk in, where like you're just never gonna win over everyone in this area. Like everyone is always gonna have some issue. They're always gonna feel some type of way. If Maryland isn't the first offer, then it was, well, why is Maryland late? And then if Penn State, if they offer late, they say, well, Penn State's winning, and doesn't matter what Maryland's doing. Like there's always a reason as to why Maryland, why it's okay to overlook them. So I think they're, again, it goes back to wins. But I'll say that, right now, see a lot more of the feedback where it's, last year you saw a guy commit to another Big Ten school over Maryland. His mom works in College Park, works in the University of Maryland university school system. She's been saying for years that she would love to see her son at Maryland, but at the end of the day, when it came time, they saw the other Big Ten's programs actually elevating, and they just kind of view Maryland as stagnant. So I think, yeah, I do think some new blood, in time will be good. I'll also say this: I don't know that it will take the entire 2026 season in order for Maryland to kind of get to that point. But we'll see. I don't think it'll be as early as week 3. I think week 3, if Maryland loses that, I think it'll be pretty damning, to be honest. And it'll be a pretty big hole to climb out of after that. But yeah, I mean, the clock is definitely ticking now.
So you're saying James Franklin could potentially, all those years later, end a Maryland coach's tenure? That's a crazy turn of events.
But
Really
it's not
curious
it's
there.
not it's not that crazy because it's Maryland,
No.
Virginia. You're recruiting a DMV. It's Virginia Tech. It's a regional. Like even prior, like Justin Fuente, like it's
Yeah.
for years. Maryland, Virginia Tech. They're recruiting rivals. Probably as big, if
So
not bigger, than Penn State when Franklin was there. So yeah, if Franklin is able to come in year one and beat Mike Locksley and Malik Washington in his sophomore year in the first big game in CQ Stadium, yeah, it
it's
it
tough.
it would probably start to get uncomfortable.
That game is
You
going to
got
be
Virginia
electric.
football. You got
It'll be
Virginia
awesome.
football ranked. You got Virginia Tech getting a high price coach. Penn State paying Matt Campbell dollars on dollars, and then you have Maryland. I think that regional pressure, while it's not as big of a deal, I think you're right, as you mentioned before, it's obviously still something that I think Jim Smith will have to consider as he looks at the future of this program.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I think last year, I think there was maybe a question. I think maybe if Jim got here a couple months earlier, maybe things would have been different. But everything I kind of gained was he really wanted the season to not go awful, and then just kind of be able to take the coming months, get a better grasp, and I think just kind of get the NIL, get everything situated and in order before you really have to make that decision. So, but yeah, it'll be very interesting next 12 months in College Park.
Should we chat some Maryland baseball?
All you, Mike. All you.
All right, awesome. Well, this past weekend the Terps went up to Iowa. That was a series we talked about. They could win it. We were hoping to see that Indiana series carry over that momentum that they had. It could not. They lost the Friday game, which turned into a Saturday game because of a lightning delay. Then they lost a later game that Saturday to drop the series. They did come out and run rule Iowa on Sunday, and they followed that up with a 19-8 win over Mount St. Mary's on Tuesday. We're recording this on Wednesday. They're going up to Michigan State. The Terps are currently in a 4-way tie for last place, but they're 2 places away from 12th place in the Big Ten in the final NCAA tournament bid. Sam, Ahmed, Brendan, what do you think we learned from the Terps this past weekend?
Hand it to Brendan. Michael and the Maryland baseball program are clearly optimistic about their remaining chances.
What did we learn? We learned that they can win a game at the end of a series that, at the end of the day, doesn't have that much meaning. I don't think we learned anything that we didn't already know. I mean, this team has really, really struggled to play complementary baseball. That was on display this weekend, and I think that they're lucky they have 4 series left this year to have a chance to make the Big Ten postseason. But as I've said for the past month about this team, I just think things are pretty bleak. Like, making the Big Ten, tournament would be, at this point, a success for this team. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. But I just think that given where the program was before Swope took over, I'm sure he's not naive to this. The expectations were much higher. Maryland had been one of the best programs in the Big Ten. So they're clearly not at that point, and I don't know if and when they'll get back to that point under him.
Yeah. Let me speak to the Maryland baseball program really quickly. I think that obviously last week we recorded, Michael was talking about how the season was potentially saved. They're back on track, that type of this. And I said, let's just give it a couple series. I want to see this team string together a few series wins. Let's start at Iowa. Let's see you go and win a series against another mid-Big Ten team. What happened? 2 straight losses, including a mercy. They won the Sunday game to preserve, a series sweep. If that keeps happening, you won't make the Big Ten tournament. It will be another season without any sort of postseason. It will be another season in which you fell short of the expectations that Matt Swope and company laid out when he took the job. It'll be another season of falling short of your predecessor's success, Rob Vaughn, who continues to have Alabama humming. There's no question that if this Maryland baseball team continues to do the same things that we've seen them do for now 2.5 seasons, it's absolutely correct to say that they've underperformed and underachieved and failed at what they were expected to do. And so we can talk all we want about how the Big Ten tournament just squeaking in would be its success. The fact that we're even mentioning that is a disappointment in and of itself. And I'm moving the goalpost. I'm saying now if you make the Big Ten tournament, huzzah! Like, that's a huge success for Swope. So again and again, I would just like to see a little bit of sustained success of improving on the things that have kind of bemoaned it, at least with other sports. If they fail, they try to improve, right? You can see other teams getting better throughout a season. Maybe not Maryland football. The penalty.
I was gonna say Maryland athletics doesn't always do that. I'll be honest.
But it just is. I just, before we can sit here and talk about how there are small improvements, this, that, and the third. There's no consistency, and it's the only thing that's consistent is the failures, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think you're saying anything that's wrong. I will note, last year there was a lot of injuries that I think hampered the Terps. I think this year about a third of the pitching staff is all injured. So it's always an uphill climb.
It's baseball, man. Pitchers get injured. Every team has injuries to pitchers.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, it's fair.
Ahmed, you obviously don't cover baseball at this, a same granular level. Nobody does, like, under the shell. I mean, we have the number one Maryland baseball expert right there. What is your opinion on the program, and specifically Matt Swope? Because he obviously is a popular name amongst Maryland fans. I think he's pretty well known for being a baseball coach. What is your gauge on the program and the coaching in general?
Yeah, actually, when I had said, it'll be an interesting next 12 months, I think, again, football, men's basketball, baseball, I think, they're all very much on the table. It seems like, there's just definitely a sense of disappointment into how this season has gone. And obviously Matt Swope kind of being a local guy, DeMatha guy, and obviously an alum, it's tough to move on, especially a guy that, was promoted in-house. So there's a lot of support, but yeah, it definitely feels like the program's kind of taking a step back, and doesn't seem like, I know obviously non-rev, but from an NIL perspective, I haven't heard too many encouraging things on how that resource funding is going.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Ahmed. I don't think that they have as many resources as the teams you would look at in the Big Ten for baseball. I'm going to stop you there with saying baseball is on the table alongside men's basketball and football. I do not think that Swope is going anywhere, at least for the next 2 seasons. I just don't think that Jim Smith cares that much about the baseball program to make a move like that. And Swope being the Maryland guy that he is, being ingrained with the program, I think that helps him out. Now, will he have to make some offseason changes on the coaching staff? I think that is definitely on the table, because this is 3 seasons now, if they missed the postseason, that have been disappointing. And I think it's fair to say that it has been disappointing. So I definitely think that's on the table. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this season plays out, the 4 remaining series. Can they sneak into the Big Ten tournament? Is there some sort of momentum at the end of this year where you can say, look, there was some progress on this team? That's going to be important for Swope and company.
I don't know. I think it's so easy to be like Jim Smith doesn't care about baseball, but Jim Smith hasn't made a legitimate hire that he can stamp as his own. So, and it would be tough, right? If Loxley struggles and they have to move on, then you have to move on from a football coach, baseball coach, whatever it may be. Like, coaching changes are hard to predict. I think you guys both have really good insight, but I think we can say with clear confidence, this is a pivotal time, a very, very pivotal point for Maryland athletics. And I think that obviously Ahmed's going to bring great coverage of it, and I'm really excited to read. And the last question I have for you, Ahmed, is before we get into Terrific Terp and just some quick notes, does this...
I think we'll probably talk about lacrosse as well, but that might be
Yeah, my bad. Lacrosse, I forgot about it. I said other sports.
you're good.
Does this season and this year in particular feel like one of the more critical ones for a department that you've covered here since kind of being around?
Yeah, I think the stage that we're at just in college athletics, I mean, 5, 6 years from now, I think, the super conference model, I think that's something that's incredibly realistic. I've heard a lot of these like Turnkey and a lot of these companies have all had their own proposals, and they've all been talking about it. And it sounds like Maryland would kind of still be included in that with the TV revenue. My thing is that, you just, the each season that you shy away from success, the fan base just dies a little bit more. So yeah, I would definitely say, I mean, if honest to God, I wish I could fast forward to August 30th and we have the actual game just to see how it actually goes. But yeah, I think that no doubt, just in terms of fan engagement, in terms of on-field results, these next 12 months. And I'd also say that Jim Smith, when he first arrived, like I said, in terms of that mindset for last season. He wanted to arrive and kind of get a feel for the lay of the land essentially, and then be able to move forward this year. And this year is really that first time where he's able to start making his mark and start to really implement some things. I've heard some really interesting kind of concepts of some ways that they might be trying to improve the in-game seating for fans, and like kind of maybe create like a splash zone similar to, I think, the O's that they do that. Sounds like Maryland could do something similar to that. I don't know if that's done deal yet, but think it'll be kind of interesting. But
What?
yeah, I think just big, big picture. Yeah, I think you kind of your margin for error isn't very big now, and I think you kind of the time for excuses and patience, I don't think it's there. Yeah, you talked about men's basketball. We spent, a lot of money to put this roster together. So I think if you don't get the results, there's going to be some tough questions. So yeah, I think this is a really pivotal stretch for the athletic department. And again, I say that it sounds like everyone's kind of has their job on the line and whatnot. Does very much feel like the athletic department is behind everyone, and there's a continued push to make sure that the resources and the infrastructure around these programs is hitting on full cylinders going into the fall.
Dude, a splash zone at Seikyu Stadium? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, again, I don't know
It
how
would
that will
feed, it would
eventually
actually
play out, but
feed
Jim,
families.
you think can we get an Ahmed vlog inside the splash zone at some point next year for Inside Black and Gold?
yeah, I don't know, man.
Jim Smith might be down to go in the splash zone. He seems like he's a very much, do it type of guy.
He's for the people for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's hit on Brendan. As mentioned, lacrosse's Big Ten women's tournament going on this weekend. This week actually.
Yeah, today.
Here at my
recording on Wednesday.
Here in my hometown in Ann Arbor. That was pretty cool to drive past and see. I'm probably going to pop out to see the Terps play. But B, take us through the women's lacrosse's path in the tournament, and then we can hit up and talk about the men's.
Yeah, of course. Sam, you weren't at the women's game in Ann Arbor last week, were you?
I was not, unfortunately. I had stuff going on, but I'm going to go.
I don't know if I would say unfortunately.
It wasn't a great.
I mean that. Yeah, what we alluded to it, but that was the worst game of their season by far. Last Thursday, Maryland women's lacrosse got blown out, 15-4. That's the type of game you kind of just got to throw away. They bounced back, beat Ohio State. Very odd weekend in the sense that they were just on the road at Michigan and Ohio State. They came back to campus. They now go back to Michigan for the Big Ten tournament. Then they play Ohio State, who they played 5 days ago. They obviously didn't have much luck on the turf in Ann Arbor, but I expect them to bounce back, beat Ohio State, a game they were pretty much in control of the whole time. They had the final score was a little bit closer than the game actually was. But if you want to break down their actual path in the Big Ten tournament, they play Ohio State today. They'll play the winner of Johns Hopkins against Rutgers. Rutgers, they blew out. Johns Hopkins, a program they've never lost to. I expect Maryland to beat Ohio State and then win win the matchup, either Johns Hopkins, Rutgers. They got super lucky. Michigan, who obviously had their number, Northwestern, who has had their number for our entire time in College Park, they avoid them. So I expect a rematch in the championship of Maryland, either playing Northwestern or Michigan, probably Northwestern, but I just don't think this team in the past 3 weeks has had enough momentum and just the way that Northwestern game ended, in the fact that their next game, they didn't have a bounce back performance at all and got blown out by Michigan, makes me think they kind of don't have the firepower to win the championship. But we saw it last year. They played Northwestern super close in that game. So that's my take on what will go down. You got any thoughts on women's tournament?
I think it's just be interesting to see if they get to that championship game. Northwestern obviously has given them a ton of trouble. Michigan, and them have had kind of a budding rivalry, I would say. So they don't need this tournament, but I think you'd like to feel good going into the NCAAs.
Yeah, they're going to host. It just depends on, if they make it to the finals or they win the Big Ten tournament, they probably end up the top 4 seed. I think, after this weekend, they're kind of projected to be around the, between either the 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of in all that range. So big weekend for them. I expect them to have a rematch in the championship. Let's talk men's lacrosse. They lost the rivalry down in Baltimore at Homewood Field. A game they've struggled in at Johns Hopkins in the past 4 years. Maryland had chances to win that game, but at the end of the day, the goalkeeping from Hopkins was just a little bit better. And Maryland offensively did not look very solid. And they had this weird period during the second quarter where they just looked super flat. Hopkins scored 3 straight goals, and Maryland was never able to recover from that. Let's look ahead to the tournament, though. Maryland will play Rutgers, actually on Maryland Day in College Park on Saturday. As we said with the women's team, also a team that Maryland blew out, so expect them to win that game against Rutgers. And then they play Penn State if they win against Rutgers. And that Penn State game is the one that's really interesting. That was Maryland's worst game of the year. It was only the second time this year they actually lost the face-off battle. And it was one of Penn State's better games, if not their best game in the net for them. President Hawkins, had 14 saves. They played very well in that game. I just haven't seen enough consistency through the entire year to think that this Maryland team is going to win the Big Ten tournament. Obviously, you guys saw it. There was a 4-way tie to win the Big Ten for men's lacrosse, which if there's 6 teams, I don't really understand the point of giving out 4 trophies. But I think this team, it kind of rests on the Penn State game. They've shown they can beat some of the better teams. Obviously, it's a weird year for the Big Ten, so sure, they're set up to have a chance of winning it. You could make the case that none of the teams have been consistent enough. I just don't quite think Maryland's going to do it. They haven't shown enough in the Big Ten that they have the offensive star power. At least they have the offensive star power, but they have not played that way. So it'll be an interesting weekend. I think they're pretty much in the NCAA tournament, but if they lose to Rutgers, that could obviously change. But there's definitely going to be a lot more postseason lacrosse. Just losing the rivalry game hinders their chances at hosting a good amount.
Mm-hmm. And we shall see what happens. I think the men's and women's lacrosse teams, every year they're the best chance Maryland has at a championship. It feels slimmer than normal with the men's lax team, but I think postseason play, people should follow along because I think the women's team's got a really good chance.
With the right path, they will definitely make the Final Four, and they have a very good shot of playing in the championship game.
Agree. Let's give Ahmed a tasting of Terrific Terp. I'm sure he's heard it before, but a live viewing here.
A live listen. And then we got some trivia, I heard, Sam, or is that?
Yes,
is that...
we do. We do.
Then we got some trivia.
Bonus part.
I'll use my 10 seconds before Terrific Terp to mention that softball won their first series of the year against Illinois. All right. Here we go, Terrific Terp. This is someone we actually talked about on the show a good amount, but he's never been named Terrific Terp. We're talking about the transfer portal a lot in this episode, obviously, with men's basketball. Let's talk about a guy who transferred into Maryland, Steve Francis. He did not have a very easy path to playing professional basketball, or basketball for that matter. Francis was born in 1977 in Tacoma Park, and he grew up playing at the Tacoma Park Boys and Girls Club and some other local courts in Prince George's County. But Francis basically never played high school basketball. Francis actually ended up attending 6 different high schools, and during that time, his mother had passed away, and he nearly quit playing basketball. But his grandmother supported him and convinced him to go play. So he traveled to Houston and joined the San Chiquito Junior College team, and he got back on the right foot and absolutely dominated. He led the team to a 36-1 record. So Francis then returned back to Maryland, not yet to play for the Terps, but to play for Allegheny Community College. In that season, he averaged 23.5 points per game, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, and 5 steals. His crafty guard skills and athleticism were on full display that year. After that time, it was finally time for him to go play Division I basketball, and he transferred to Maryland. He nearly ended up going to Georgetown, but ended up in College Park. He continued his momentum from the past 2 years at Maryland, where he averaged 17 points per game with his only season with the Terps. He led them to a Sweet 16 appearance and was second-team All-American. He was also named a finalist for the Wooden and Naismith Player of the Year awards. He was the second overall pick in the NBA draft by the Vancouver Grizzlies, but he didn't want to play for them, so he was traded to the Rockets for the 1999 season. That year, he won Rookie of the Year, and in his second year, he was named for the 2002 All-Star Game, which isn't so bad for a guy who didn't play high school basketball. With the Rockets, he appeared in 3 All-Star Games. After 2 years with the Magic, he then spent a season and change with the Knicks before a final season back with the Rockets in 2008. He then took a year off from basketball before a very, very short stint with the Beijing Dunks, but was never able to get back playing into the NBA. The Maryland legend, who is still seen around College Park once in a while, is this week's Terrific Terp.
Good stuff, B. We appreciate you doing that every week. And now, to wrap up the episode, I'm going to do some quick hitting trivia for Ahmed. Ahmed, I got 10 questions for you. You get 2 phone a friend. So Michael and Brendan are on standby if needed. I would not call them too often. They're both bad.
We suck at this, but
Is it
let us know if you want
unlimited,
some
or I
help.
get just one lifeline each?
If you like, you know what? We'll do it so that you can. The phone a friend applies to both of them, so it's like they can both contribute.
Bet.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, Michael's
Well,
kind of.
we want to be a millionaire.
You might want to rely more on Brendan. Michael's not too helpful. Okay, starting off, we're going to kind of go with an easy. We can go off with an easy one. What year did Maryland women's basketball win its first national championship?
Was it 2006?
1 for 1. Good start, Ahmed. I want to ask, what Bird Field or Bird Stadium was named after a former player, coach, and university president? What was that man's first name?
William?
Close. His name was H.C. Bird, also known as Curly.
Can we?
So
If he gets it
Yeah,
wrong,
that's
can the
right.
questions go to
Oh,
Mike and I or
wow.
no?
what'd you say?
Can Mike and I get a guess if he gets it wrong?
Yeah, sure. That.
All right, good.
Man, I would have hit you a Perry Clifton there. What are we doing?
Sure, pal. Next question for you. How many national titles has John Tillman won with Maryland?
What is it? I'm gonna phone. I think I know it, but I'm gonna phone Brendan or Mike, whoever feels most comfortable.
Brendan,
Mike, all you did.
Brendan, I'm gonna consult with you. I believe it's only 2.
I think it's
Yeah.
2. Yeah, I believe it's
Yeah.
2.
That's a waste of a phone a friend, but you are correct. 2
I
for 3
I, I
so
couldn't I
far.
honestly couldn't remember if there was a third like in his first couple of
Yeah.
years, but yeah.
That's
So
fair.
many title appearances though, man.
Yeah. This is going to be a tough one for you. Which bowl game that's now extinct ended Maryland football's 2007 season?
2007. 2007. Was that no, it wasn't
I'll give you a hint. They played
Was that-
Oregon State in the bowl game.
oh, okay. I was thinking that was the Colin Kaepernick Nevada year.
Crazy
Oh,
piece
man.
of nugget right there. They played.
Yeah, I remember that game, watched it in my buddy's basement. Oh man, 2007. I'm trying to remember who the quarterback was for
All
that
right, Ahmed,
season.
no Jeopardy timer here, but we got 5 seconds.
Yeah, I do not remember the name off the top.
Brendan and Michael, any ideas?
Mike, all you. I had nothing.
I got nothing, bro.
You can try the Emerald Bowl in San Francisco. They played it at the Giants ballpark. Very interesting game. Yeah, kind of an irrelevant bowl game, so I don't blame you there. What is the Testudo statue outside of the football stadium? What is it made out of? This is an easier question than you think, but just what's it made out of?
Why is this an easier question? Why would I know
Yo,
this?
Sam.
Just think about.
He worked at a bank. He
Testudo's-
didn't work at a metal factory.
Think about the statue. Think about what it looks like. What is it? What
I think I know
what
the
do you
answer to
guess
this,
it's
actually.
made of?
Brendan, you chip in.
It has to be bronze, right?
Ding, ding, ding. Bronze is your answer.
Let's go.
Good job, Brendan.
Bang.
I believe that's 3 for 5.
It's not passing.
5.
It's all good. It's like human sexuality in college.
We got 5 more for you. In the 1950s, a very, very famous celebrity attended a Maryland football game. Do you know who that person was?
Yeah, was it not Queen Elizabeth?
Bang. Nice job.
Yeah.
All right. 6 for 8. Well done there, Ahmed. Next one for you. Maryland once played a game billed as the best of the East versus the best of the West. I'm going to allow you to guess what decade this game came in and an extra bonus point if you're able to name the specific year that they played it.
Best of the East versus best of the West.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably gonna skip on the bonus point and probably not even get the decade right. The best of the West. I couldn't tell you, man. Probably that might be before my time.
Yeah. Maybe just a little. Brendan, Michael, any guesses?
Nothing.
I feel like it's. I feel like it's not. I feel like it's not UCLA because I feel like it would have been mentioned more when they played them this year. But it probably is them. So that's what I got for you on this.
So
What
you
year
go.
do you think? What decade be?
The 19. Probably the 60s, right? Or 50s.
No, it goes
The
70s.
The 1950s. And Brendan, correct. They beat Maryland. They beat UCLA 7-0 in that game.
Oh,
Crazy,
what an
crazy
exciting
stuff.
matchup!
Historians
Two
called it-
safeties and a field goal, probably.
Historians called it one of the best of the decades. Interesting stuff. This
7-0.
is a really tough one, guys. So I'm not gonna judge you if you don't get this right. But Maryland in 2006 was honored by the American Football Coaches Association for what statistic?
Damn, bro.
Wait,
Sam.
real quick.
Is this the most eclectic?
In 2006, Maryland football was honored for a very particular, very niche statistic. by the American Football Coaches Association. What would that statistic might have been?
Bro, I'm getting my butt kicked.
No, this is tough. I'll give you a hint. This is
It
something
has to do with coaching, though?
It might not be on the field, but Michael Locksley always talks about raising better men. What would a stat that would equate to that be? That only Maryland athletics
GPA?
No, APR?
Close.
Not.
Graduation rate. The Terps have the highest graduation rate in all of Division I football. Last big record they took home, guys. Shout out Maryland.
Oof. Getting my butt kicked.
You've kind of
shout out Randy
here.
Starks.
We're 6 for 9. This is the last question for you. What Terp player broke the ACC color barrier in 1963?
Yeah, this is not Darryl Hill.
There we go, Ahmed. Good finish to your round. Well done. That was a lot better than some of our previous guests who have done it. We don't do trivia for anybody, so you should feel honored.
I'll take it. I'm a little bit embarrassed by the 7, but I'll take it.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I mean, some of the questions Sam just asked you are absolutely absurd. I don't even know where he thought to ask this garbage.
You know what? You can come up with the questions next time, host. Anyway, we appreciate everyone for listening. Go check out the Inside the Black and Gold. Really great coverage of all the transfer portal stuff we talked about, all the football stuff. Ahmed, one of the best in the business, so definitely go over there and read his stuff. Listen to Under the Shell at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your content. And we will be back next week to talk more about Maryland athletics, potentially the really tall and a really fun new guest. So thanks for listening.
Have a great week and grab a Catalyst hot dog.
You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.